It always seems to be a bit of a frowned upon thing of, oh, you've changed. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Why is it always
I'm
sounded
supposed
like...
to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
it
supposed to
sounds as if-
change. It's always said with a negative connotation, but we're supposed to. We're not supposed to. If you go through your whole life staying the same and never making any mistakes and never doing anything wrong, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. I don't think so.
Hi, and welcome to A Class of Their Own podcast, revealing the human stories behind their name. We will hear honest and intimate reflections from our guests who, despite their circumstances, shape a world that reflects their unique visions of success. Join me, Mira Magecha, to learn from these inspirational people and take the first step to make your own change. On today's episode, we're joined by Matt Ebbage. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So we start the podcast in the same way.
Cool.
And so our listeners would love to know, who is Matt?
That's a really good question. The deep and meaningful response to that is I'm still figuring that one out myself.
Okay.
But I
The
am...
undeep and meaningful.
The undeep and meaningful, easy one is I'm Matt. I'm a wedding photographer based down in Kent. Yeah. Do you know what? I don't know how to answer that question. It's like the easiest question in the world, isn't it? But I actually have no idea how to answer it. Who is Matt?
What's coming up for you when you go, oh, actually I started and now I'm going to stop because I don't know?
So I just overthink everything and then I just start thinking, well, what am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to answer that question? What is the right answer?
And do you think there is a right answer?
I don't know. I know that the answer that I've given is not a good one. So I know there's definitely like a bad answer to it, but I genuinely don't know what the answer to that question is.
How would you introduce yourself if you were to meet someone for the first time?
Hi, I'm Matt. How's it going? Nice to meet you.
Beyond that?
Ask them questions about them.
So you're a deflector.
Yeah.
Why?
Because that's what I was going to say that's what I was taught to be. That's kind of what I was taught to be. That is what I was taught to be.
What do you mean that's what you were taught to be?
So my parents, my dad especially, like I don't want to, feel like I'm bad-mouthing him or slagging him off because he's a wonderful human being, but I learned from a very early age from observing him that if you wanted a fairly easy flowing conversation, you just find out what someone likes about talking about themselves and then just keep going and just talk to them about them. Don't, make the conversation about you, make it about someone else. So I spent 30 odd years doing that, thinking that that was the right thing to do.
And when did that change?
When I started having therapy.
Okay, so tell me more.
I've always been a bit of a natural born people pleaser, I guess, just fully in the people pleaser bracket. And I started having some therapy and digging a bit more into trying to understand who I was, because I realised that I learned from a very early age how to be a really good chameleon, which as a wedding photographer is amazing because it means that I've got the confidence and the ability to walk into a room of 100 people that I don't know and not be fazed by that at all and be okay.
Right.
Because I can read a room pretty well and pretty quickly and know who I need to be in that environment to fit.
Right.
And I'm very grateful that I have the ability to do that.
Yep.
But that meant that I never really got a handle on who was underneath that because I was always just effectively playing a role.
What was the moment you decided that you needed to go and see a therapist and uncover who you were and which chameleon is out to play?
Good question. I think it was a few different things. So I've had a couple of, I'm mid-second round now. First round was I was going down a very, very bad road. I was working full time at the time, as in I was employed full time.
Right.
I'd been made redundant and was just not in a very good place at all. Was very low, very depressed, very angry. I was very, very angry. And I didn't really know where it was coming from. And I knew that something was wrong, but I'd put it off for a long time because I'd always, I guess, had an understanding and an appreciation of what mental health professionals do, but I'd never been able to rationalize it in my own head because my only experience of medical professionals was, I can walk into the doctor with a dislocated finger and go, that hurts. Yeah. I can tell you what hurts. I can tell you where it hurts, and you'll be able to do something to fix it. But I thought, well, if I can't tell them what hurts, why it hurts, where it hurts, how are they supposed to be able to tell me what's wrong? Like, how are they supposed to be able to just get inside my own head? Because I didn't have a full understanding of their ability to get inside your own head. But I just got to the point where I was like, I've got to do something. So went to the GP, said, I don't know what it is, but something's not right. And he literally just took one look at me and said, okay, well, you don't need to be at work for the next 3 weeks.
Right.
Had this kind of standard NHS mandated round of CBT, which was useless, honestly, because 6 sessions of CBT is just enough to kind of unscrew the can on the lid on the can of worms and then just send you out into the world with all of this stuff
that you've now uncovered and you don't know what to do with.
I have no idea what it is or how to deal with it, how to experience it, how to feel about it. So just went and sought a private therapist and saw her for, I think, 18 months. Got myself. She definitely got me back on a much better path. But then last year, I think probably because of the pandemic fallout, that was a pretty interesting time for self-employed people. And a few other things. I just found myself back I just wasn't particularly happy. A lot of the kind of feelings of anger had started coming back. And just really wasn't being very nice to myself. So, and I was trying to understand for myself why I was feeling the way I was feeling, why I was acting the way I was acting and behaving towards myself, and just trying to figure out where that was coming from. And I just had a complete blank. And you know what? Actually, I think I remember there was a conversation at some point. Someone, I can't even remember what it was, but I had to do something. I had to fill in an application for something, and one of the questions was, to just tell us about yourself. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Because everything else at that point had been just completely stripped away, and I just had this massive identity crisis, I guess. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I should probably figure that out. Should probably do something about that.
And through the therapy and through the work and through the conversations and through everything you've thought about, learnt, heard from yourself, where was the anger coming from? What was that directed towards?
It's been a few different places, really. Some of it is directed at myself, for always just suppressing feelings, emotion, anything. It's been quite an interesting journey to be like a late 30s, early 40s bloke, learning how to feel something other than anything that's not kind of considered positive.
Yeah.
For the first time. It's been strange. A bit of it was directed at my parents, I guess, because they did so many things right, and I'm so grateful to them, and I love them dearly. But there's definitely points where I just think there was no, they didn't set me up for just being able to function in a normal world as opposed to a slightly rose-tinted world.
And we'll come back to that in a second. Any other reflections of why you were angry and who and why? And why were you angry at yourself?
Because why was I angry at myself? Because I had this overwhelming feeling that I just let myself down because I never really stood up for myself. I've always been very hard on myself. Like most people are their own worst critic, but I have always just had this very unhealthy mentality or approach or attitude towards myself that if I do something well, if I set out to achieve something and I achieve it, then my mind just goes, okay, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. So great, good, move on. If I fail, then my mind just goes, well, of course you failed because you're crap at everything. Can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
Shit at everything. And that I'm still kind of fully unpicking where that started. But I've never learned to be nice to myself ever. And I've never, ever been able to do it. It's something that, a lot of people it's very easy to say very flippantly of like, oh, just be nicer to yourself. Like, okay, great. But I need someone to tell me how to do that because I don't know. Yeah. Like I can look at myself in the mirror. Ruth, my therapist, gave me this little exercise to do for a couple of weeks of like, almost like a little kind of self-affirmation ritual of looking myself in the eyeballs in a mirror and saying, I love you over and over, which, after a while felt really nice. But at the start I was like,
it's the most uncomfortable thing on the planet, like, when you first do it.
What a dick thing to do. Like just literally like in the bathroom, staring at yourself in the mirror going, I love you. I love you. I love you. But it's funny how you kind of, over time, you hear the tone of your voice changing and you feel this wall kind of breaking down. But yeah, my attitude and my mentality towards myself and towards the world in general now is fundamentally changing, which feels really like it's a lot. It's overwhelming at times because it feels like you're just learning all this new stuff at an age where my expectation of myself is that I should have learned all this when I was
10.
Yeah, well, like 2.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been interesting, but it's still a work in progress.
Why were you angry at your parents? What have you uncovered over the last period of time and where it stems from and why you are the way you are?
So I'm an only child, and I grew up in a house that was, in so many ways, it was idyllic. It was, I grew up in rural, central UK, very kind of farmy, like right out on the edge of a village. So we were, around the corner from the house is just open fields and open space and fresh air, and it was incredible. It was beautiful. And I have two parents that absolutely adore me, which is more than a lot of people have, and I'm very grateful for it. I am very grateful for it. But it was, they also grew up in a time where, I mean, especially I think, it's true of both of them, but definitely my dad, he worked in business all his life. And looking back on some of the stuff that he used to say now, it's straight out of like a sales handbook or a management handbook or something. You only get out what you put in. Life is what you make it. It's just, all the little kind of taglines that you hear at management talks. But their approach to life is very much, you just be positive about everything. And I'm all for a positive outlook on life. And I look back now and think, well, I always used to have a positive mentality and I don't have that so much anymore. But I think actually what I have now is a more realistic approach or, openness to life.
Yeah.
and an acceptance and an understanding that there is a flip side, but that was never an option. So
give us an example of something that happened at home when you were little and how you were expected, I suppose, to keep it positive.
I mean, there's one fairly extreme example, which is difficult because I understand why they did it, and I understand that actually the approach got them through it, but got us all through it. But towards the end of my second year of uni, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer. Routine mammogram, no lump, no triggers, no warning signs or anything like that, just out of the blue. And I was, I don't know, I was a handful of weeks away from finishing my second year. I was going through some exams. And they didn't tell me. They should have done, and they still don't really tell me stuff now, but they didn't tell me. I finished my year, and I'd seen them as well in the period between. I'd seen them, and they'd just been their normal selves and hadn't said a word because they were too worried about disrupting me. I finished the year, packed all my stuff up, moved out of the house that I was living in, went back home for the summer. And we pulled onto the drive at home, and Mum said, before we unpack the car, let's just go and have a cup of tea. There's something we just need to talk about. And instantly I knew that was like
something.
Yeah, there's something going on. And we sat down and she said, right, there's something I need to tell you. I've got this. I've been diagnosed with this. But everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. It's not going to beat me. Everything is going to be okay. We've got a treatment plan mapped out. We know exactly what's going to happen. All of this stuff is going to happen. It's going to be difficult, but it's going to be okay. Actually, I don't even think she said it's going to be difficult. I think it was just blind positivity only. And I refuse to believe that there were points where she wasn't terrified, or there weren't points where she didn't know if she could do it. But I never saw those because they never let me see that. It was always, we have to be positive. Which, like I say, that got us through the really shit times when she's going through chemo and her hair was falling out and she was puking all the time and stuff. But it's a pretty extreme example, but like there are so many, even just little things. It was always, if I expressed any dissatisfaction or if I wasn't happy about something, it was always, we'll just concentrate on the silver lining. Don't worry about that. Think about this. Think about the flip side. Think about the silver lining. Be grateful for what you do have. And those are all great, and those are all really important things to do.
Yeah.
But there was just there was just nothing. There was no kind of, life wasn't great. It was black and white, but it was 95% one and 5% the other. And there wasn't even an acknowledgement of it's okay to feel. Yeah. So I basically all I learned to do was suppress anything and everything that wasn't deemed positive.
Did you know you were doing that?
No, I thought that was normal. I had no idea. I know now that there is only so long you can do that before it starts coming back to bite you. And when you're suppressing stuff, it's just, there is energy in your body that you're just shoving into a box.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go, it can sit there for however long, but it's not going to go anywhere. And every now and again, it's going to come back up. And the thing that I realized over the course of the last few years is just, I thought I'd done a good job of shoving it deep, but I hadn't. It was literally that far under the surface, and it took something so small, and all that energy started coming out, and I had no idea what it was, how to deal with it, what to do. And that played out in anger.
So anger was your outlet?
Yeah, because I was just fighting against it. In my head, it was wrong. But there was no, my mentality towards everything was very binary. There was no grey area in the middle. There was no, okay, well, I can do a little bit of both. It was right or wrong.
Right.
Or good or bad. There was no okay. There was no middle ground. There was no, okay, well, done is better than perfect. No, it either has to be perfect or it's shit.
Wow. And for you, as you were going through feelings of not feeling perfect or not feeling okay or great, you were literally going, this isn't normal and therefore I can't be feeling this? Is that what you were doing?
I don't even think I was aware. I think I was so disassociated. I wasn't even aware of
not being okay.
Yeah. I was, it didn't matter what was going on. It didn't matter what was happening. If someone said to me, how are you? I'd just go, yeah, I'm great. How are you? Because it was just a
second nature.
Yeah, it was just muscle memory. I still do it now, but I catch myself now. But yeah, it was just muscle memory. And I didn't ever stop to consider. I was completely unaware of how I felt. I think looking back, I was aware that I felt great. What I thought was great 90% of the time, maybe less. And the rest of the time I felt these kind of slightly darker anger, frustration feelings. But I just, if something came up, I just pushed it back down because I thought, well, that's not positive. That was me. I've learned now that was me controlling how I was perceived in the world.
Yep.
By just making sure that I was only ever seen as positive, either being positive or doing things that were positive. I was only ever thought of as an all-round positive person to be around.
What happened when you realised that that's what you were doing? What did you start doing more of, less of? What were you practicing? What were some of your ways?
So the kind of the type of therapy that I have been having and that I am having is very much centered around being much more mindful, much more aware of your own body, effectively. And a lot of it is kind of almost like touch-based, massage-based, just get out of your own head kind of stuff.
What is the therapy called?
I don't know whether it's got a particular name. If it has, I don't know what it is. But okay. We spend probably 80% of the time talking, and then there's like a massage table where it's basically like
Sounds like bliss.
It's so good. Like if any, it's so interesting because like I'm very lucky that I can come at this from a place of curiosity, right, rather than when I first went, I felt like a completely broken human being and I just needed putting back together. Now there are still times where I feel a bit like that, but I can come at it from a place of curiosity where I get interested in what I'm feeling or what I'm doing or where something comes from.
Yeah.
But there have been times where obviously it takes like being more mindful and that kind of that meditative approach takes a lot of practice because I just get very easily distracted and I have to keep like pulling my attention back.
Yeah.
But there's been times where, Ruth, my therapist, has just been asking me questions and I've not known the answers. I've been sat and I've been just eyes closed, very quiet and just breathing into it and trying to access it. And I can't, and she'll just, like, I'll just go and lie on the massage table and she will literally just like put pressure on a point somewhere and just say, just that pressure, just breathe into that, just feel that and breathe into that. And I do that for about 20 seconds and all of a sudden this energy just starts flowing and this stuff. Yeah. I'm like, I wasn't even aware that was a thing. Like I wasn't. Yeah, I haven't thought about that for a long time. I haven't thought that was potentially anything, and it just flows. It's unbelievable. It's really interesting.
This episode is brought to you by Play for Change. Play for Change brings together leadership coaching, expert facilitation, and builds communities. They help craft real connections, spark learning, and turn play into powerful experiments to enable better relationships with yourself and others around you. To find out more, go to playforchange.co.uk. Links are in the show notes below. Trauma sits within yourselves. And so the idea of talking about something, going, I'm not entirely sure where I'm feeling it or how I feel, or I don't know how to answer that question. And then some form of connection to that cell enables that to come out. So that logically, now that you've said it, makes a lot of sense.
When you say it in those terms, it makes a lot of sense, and you kind of go, well, why doesn't everyone do that?
Yeah.
Which is like, that's the question that I've been asking myself for ages, because it's fascinating, and it's fun. It's difficult if you because you don't,
of course.
If you go into it and you don't know what's going to come out, obviously you need to be safe. But if you know kind of what you're looking for, it's really good. It's really fun.
But also, to your point, you've got to be curious with it and see what comes, and then make a conscious decision of what you're going to do next with it, rather than just put it somewhere and keep pushing it, because at some point it becomes the aerosol, it becomes the pressure cooker, it becomes
100%.
Whatever analogy you want to use of this thing, but it will blow up at some point.
Definitely. And you've also got to be open to it. You've got to be open to the idea of, the thing that I learned more than anything is, and I'm far from the only person, it's, we as people generally, but especially, I haven't fact checked this, but I think men in general were so bad at being vulnerable, so bad at just being vulnerable. And if you're going to get the most out of it, you just have to be. And it's taken a lot for me to learn how. I say to learn how to do that. I sound like I'm the finished product. I'm still learning how to do that, but it's fun.
And that's a different mindset to get into.
Oh, so it's the opposite. It's the opposite of what I always used to do. The thing that it's kind of made me, in a lot of ways, I'm still very, very grateful. Like I'm very grateful for the upbringing that I had. I'm very grateful for the environment that I was in, because it was, like I say, in so many ways, it was amazing. But the realization that there's more, and that you can, if you just open yourself up a little bit more and you just open your mind to the idea of different things, the connection that you can have with the world and with the people in it is so much more. And it kind of just makes me a bit sad for my younger self, who I now realize so many of my friendships and relationships were just surface level. Like, because I didn't know at the time that that's what it was, but looking back on it, that's exactly what it was, because that person never really knew me, because I didn't know me. They knew the version of me that I was happy to give them or show them, or that I was happy to be around them, which isn't necessarily a reflection on them. It's very much a reflection on me, because I was very, although probably subconsciously, I was very conscious of who I wanted to be around those people in order to fit in
to the mould.
Yeah.
So you were using an onion analogy. You were showing everyone the top layer, but they never got through. Yeah. And you never let them get through, because you were holding it back. And
you know what? I think I let them get as deep as I knew how to
go.
As I knew how to go. If they'd have wanted to go any deeper, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because I didn't have the answers. I didn't know myself beyond the version. So actually, I guess in that sense, they did know the full me, because they knew the version of me that I knew how to be, or that I knew. I didn't know what was underneath at all.
Have you had this conversation with your parents?
To an extent, yeah.
If there was something you could share with your parents from what you've learned and what you're learning, what would that be?
It's a good question. It's difficult because they, as much as I think I probably taught myself how to do this. I am a product of the environment that I was in. So I know that basically if anything is ever wrong with me, they just blame themselves. Which I understand. I get, I don't know because I'm not a parent, but I would imagine that you have a child or children and you just go, okay, right, well, it's my job to just make sure that you're okay and successful. And so I honestly don't know. I just want them to know that it's not their fault because they will feel like it is. They know that I've been having therapy. They've known that I've not been okay. They don't necessarily know the full extent, but that is a conscious thing from me, but it's not because I don't want to tell them. It's because they won't be able to hear it.
Who have you got in your life today that can help and support you or does help and support you, and where do you go for that?
I've got a really amazing wife, thankfully, she's had her own experience of mental health. She's had her own experience of therapy, which has really helped because she's the one that kind of spotted some things in me that weren't quite right, and she's been an awesome source of like information and encouragement, and she can relate, which is amazing. I've got an unbelievable group of friends that I can now actually have a friendship with, and that I am so grateful for, because I can have like we can go to the pub and have a beer, which we're doing this evening.
Because you'll need it after this.
Because I'm ready for one. And we can either just chat shit for a couple of hours and that's great, or we can sit and have a proper, deep and meaningful conversation, and which is brilliant because I'm now aware of those levels of connection and how much richer that experience is, that life experience is. I'm just craving that all the time now, to the point where for a little while I kind of went a bit too far, and I was almost just like encouraging constant conversation about mental health, because I was like, this is the way that we can just connect more and I can get to know you better. And I've kind of I've railed that back a little bit now, but I've just been craving that deeper connection. So I've got some amazing friends now.
But you've uncovered something about yourself.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you were excited to share that and learn that about others and go, if I've been doing this, surely everybody else has been doing this. So it becomes almost like your new hobby.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very guilty of thinking that, if I'm thinking it, then, you kind of just judge everyone by your own standards or your own thoughts or whatever. So yeah, I've kind of just automatically assumed that I've finally caught up with everyone else, and, I'm a bit late to the party, which I generally am with most things, but that's fine.
Did you actually uncover that you were late to the party, or the fact that everybody was doing this? And what were the feelings? Was there a moment of comparison? I'm not as good at XYZ, or I've missed out 10 years, whereas you've been doing this, or you've been encouraging me to do this for years, but I've only now understood the value, etc. What was the thinking pattern in terms of, as you discovered different range of feelings from 0 to 100?
Mainly with Jess, my wife, it was there was a lot of me saying, we've talked about this and we figured this out, and now I feel these things and now I can understand this, and she kind of just looks at me like,
finally.
Yeah, fucking hell, mate. You're like, I've been waiting for you to do this for years. Will you please just catch up? So yeah, it's been a lot of that. There has been a lot of that. I think honestly, it's been a little bit of everything. Like it's been, there's been a bit of actually being early to the party for the first time. For the first time in ages, because I'm again talking to Ruth, my therapist, and she's like, well, as a 41-year-old guy, you're actually a little bit ahead of the curve, because most guys don't do this until they're in their 50s, because they're busy off having kids, and that's a big distraction for quite a long time. And they don't, that completely shelves their own ideas of their own mental health or being even aware of what's going on with them. Everything just gets pushed down because there is this bigger, much more important being that you need to look after, or beings that you need to look after. She was like, well, so the fact that you don't have kids is actually, this has got you ahead of the curve. So enjoy it, which I do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that feeling like I'm always behind the curve and feeling like I'm not good enough has been a fairly common. I've always thought that.
And where does that stem from? Because again, if I logically use the conversation we've just had, which is, it was from positivity.
Yeah.
Everything was great.
Yeah.
I'm great.
Yeah.
Where does that I'm not good enough therefore come from?
Just because I said, yeah, I'm great, didn't mean I felt it. I very rarely felt it.
Okay.
But I knew that that's what I was supposed to say, because I was I grew up with the belief of, you don't make it all about yourself, because that's selfish. You don't talk about yourself because that's arrogant or selfish. No one wants to hear your sob story. No one wants you to be the mood hoover in the room. Like, if I walk into the room and go, I feel shit today, people are going to be like, I don't want to hang out with this guy. That's it. Like, no, thanks. So I just walked into the room and went, yeah, I'm great. Like, everything's fine. And I was just this very overtly happy kid person.
Were you popular? And I don't know even what I mean by that word of popular, because it's comparative
in
again.
my mind. I easily just went back to school of going popular kids, not popular kids, which is weird, isn't it? But yeah, I guess so. I had a lot of friends. I was probably a bit of an anomaly at school, because I had, we all have we probably all have a very similar experience of school, that there is the slightly strange school-based class system of cool kids, sporty kids, geeky kids, arty kids, whatever. And I had friends in all camps, played a lot of sport, had loads of mates there, could be one of the lads, but equally had friends in all different kind of areas. So yeah, I guess I was, which again, I loved. I really liked that.
As you're sitting here and you volunteered to come on as a guest, what's the message you want to share?
Open your mind to more than one idea and get to know yourself a lot better than you already do, because it's fascinating.
And if someone was to go, okay, how the fudge do I even take the first step to do that?
Yeah.
What's your advice?
I mean, personally, I think everyone should go and have some therapy. I think it's fascinating. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think there is still very much it's less so now, but there's still very much a stigma around, if I go to see a therapist, then I'm broken as a person. Like, I can only go and see a therapist if something's wrong. You can't. You can feel absolutely fine, great, whatever you want to say. But I think we all have those little corners of our mind that are a bit darker and that we don't really like that much, or we know that the stuff that we do that probably doesn't serve us very well.
Mm-hmm.
And going and exploring that is really interesting if you're happy to just let yourself go there and be vulnerable and be prepared to be wrong about anything that you've always held as a belief, and know that that's okay. Like, we're not, the thing that it's made me realize more than anything is actually how much time and energy people put into trying to freeze time.
Freeze time? What do you mean by that?
I mean, we spend so much time trying not to change. If we get into a bit of a area of, or a bit of a groove, or where, you know, certain things are happening in our lives and we think, or our life, and we think, this is really good, I don't want this to change. We just cling on to it, and we try and do things to make sure that that bubble stays intact. And we're not meant to do that. We're not meant to be the same. We're meant to have friendships that come and go. Maybe we have relationships that come and go. That's hard, but it's okay. We're meant to change as people. And there's all of this, you know, if people fall out, if you have friends that you kind of distance yourself from a bit, or you just drift from a little bit because you just become different people.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a bit of a frowned upon thing of, oh, you know, you've changed. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Why is it always
I'm
sounded
supposed
like...
to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to change.
It always sounds as if it's a negative.
Yeah.
You've changed. Is that good? Is it bad?
Yeah, exactly. It's always said with a negative connotation, but we're supposed to. We're not supposed to. If you go through your whole life staying the same and never making any mistakes and never doing anything wrong, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. I don't think so.
Based on your experience and based on what you've just talked about, has that influenced your current decision not to have children?
Good question. Yeah, I think so.
Tell me a little bit more.
I think so. Us not having kids is based on, there's kind of a few different factors. From my side, I think a good portion of the decision to not have them, or to certainly be okay with not having them, is because I've never felt ready. I know, you know, obviously the default thing for most parents to say is, oh, you never feel ready, you've just got to go for it. But I've never, I up until very, very recently, if someone had said to me, do you want kids? I would have just gone, yeah, of course I do. But in the same way that I used to say, yeah, I'm great, even if I'm not, because that's just what you're supposed to say. And I would just say it as a default statement rather than actually having thought about it and been aware of whether I wanted them or not. And as I've grown more in myself, I think realised that I've never really felt that kind of paternal pang. I've got mates who have got kids. They've got amazing kids. I love spending time with them, but I've never really had that. Like, I quite like the idea of just the two of us being able to get on a flight and just us, and I'm not having to deal with an unruly child.
Have you ever been asked that question before?
What about, has it influenced whether you wanted to have? No. If
you reflect back on when you were a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, somewhere around that age, what did you think you'd be doing right now, and how would you have measured the success of that compared to where you are today?
It's funny, I've thought about that a lot, because as a 10, 12, early teenager, whatever, I would have, like, if someone said to me, you know, think about you at 41, I would have just gone, oh my God, that's so old.
So old, firstly.
So old. Because I guess, like, when I was that age, my dad was, what would he have been? He would have been in his 40s, I guess. And it's so different. Like, the ideas that I had were very much, and again, I guess this was probably driven a little bit by my parents or my environment, but I very much bought into the kind of the socially accepted boxes that you're supposed to tick.
Yeah.
Get married, buy a house, have kids.
Buy a bigger house.
Buy a bigger house. Get
a better job.
Yeah, get a better car.
Yeah.
Buy more stuff. Go on better holidays.
Yep.
But and in my mind, it was that. It wasn't nicer or more fun. It was better.
Yeah.
And I've done one of those three things. We're married. So based on where I thought I'd be, I didn't really have an idea. My idea back then of what I wanted to do for a career changed as often as I changed my clothes.
Yeah.
I had no real idea of what I wanted to do. And I've grown to love that. It took me a long time, but I've grown to love that. I still, I love what I do now. I adore what I do now. Am I going to be doing it in 5 years? I don't know. I could find something else. I could be going and doing something different. That excites me. I really like that. But yeah, if I look back at my 10-year-old self, there's no way I would have thought that I would be where I am now.
Are you in a place that brings you more joy than where you thought you would be?
I think so. I'm still very much trying to get my head out of the mentality that I had around success. My ideas of success, my view of success has always been a bit weird, I think, or a bit skewed. Not weird. I was going to say different. It might not even be different. It's not been very healthy because with that very binary mentality of good, bad, right, wrong, I developed this very much like an all or nothing mentality. But my expectation of myself was, and to an extent still is, so skewed and unhealthy. If someone said to me, I've never picked up a camera before, but I'm going to pick a camera up now and I want to be one of the best photographers in the world, like that, I would say, let's temper that expectation a little bit. Let's learn. Let's enjoy the process of learning. And it's nice to have something to work towards, but just enjoy
getting that.
Yeah, doing what you're doing. But if it's me saying it, my expectation is that if I do something, I have to be elite at it. And I know that I'm not going to be, and I hate not being good, because in my mind I'm never good enough. And I don't know who that's for. I don't know, who am I not good enough for, or what am I not, good enough compared to what?
Yeah.
So I can at least rationalize it now. And I can talk to myself and go, you don't need to think like that anymore. Like, that's not helpful.
But also you're on a journey. You've described the journey you've been on and where you've started and where you are currently. But your journey is not over.
No,
your
far from it.
curiosity is still going. You're still exploring. You're still learning.
Yeah.
You're still trying different modalities, for a better term, of what's working for you and what's not working for you. And so in lots of ways, this is really helpful, because you're not saying, hey, I'm over here and I've got all the answers, so just do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
What you're actually saying is be open, be curious, and see where the road takes you.
Definitely. The idea of being so fixed to one idea I've always been skeptical of that. It's never really worked for me. I've tried it in the past. I tried religion for a while. I was a practicing Christian for a little while, and it just didn't. The idea of being so fixated to one idea just didn't work for me, because the truth is that we know nothing. Like, we know very, very little. We know a lot, and we've done a lot in a very short space of time, we as people.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything. So
there's still so much left.
There is so much that we don't, that is just, that we don't know. But the idea of being so fixated to one idea and being shut off to the idea of anything else, it's always really confused me. Like, I've got friends who are doctors, and they went to school, and they knew when they were a kid they wanted to be a doctor, and they did incredibly well in their exams, and they chose all the subjects for A-levels that they needed to do to become a doctor. And then they went to medical school because they wanted to be a doctor, and they got through medical school, and now they're doctors. And I'm so, I was going to say envious. I'm envious of their ability to focus on something that much for that amount of time. Like the kind of the blinkered, like that is the end goal and nothing's getting in my way. Yeah. That is an incredible skill to have. But my mind just didn't work like that. If I had blinkers on, I'd be going, well, hang on, what's all this other stuff out here that I'm missing out on because I'm just concentrating so hard on that one thing over there?
Yeah.
So, which is why I guess I've had quite a varied career, I suppose. But I love that.
Have you had fun along the way?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot, and I've made some mistakes, and I've fallen down and got back up again. And, but only recently I've learned, or I've started learning to actually be able to feel any kind of pride about that. Pride is not something that I ever embraced because it wasn't part of the, it was my own mind towards myself was incredibly negative.
Yeah.
But existing in that world of positive, negative, right, wrong, all or nothing, outwardly, I was positive, happy, upbeat, great. And inwardly, I was the opposite most of the time. So I never learned to actually feel. I could say, if someone said, "Oh, are you proud of what you've done?" Yeah, I am. Yeah, but there's still a part of me that doesn't really know what that feels like. Like to actually sit there and go, "Wow, I did that." I'm starting to be able to give myself credit for stuff. I'm starting to be able to say, actually, yeah, I'm good at that. Not in an arrogant way, just in a, I have confidence in myself that I can do that now. Because I just never learned how to do that.
As you're sitting there, having had a majority of this conversation now, how are you feeling?
I guess actually a little bit proud, because I really like that I have this extra level of awareness about myself now, and that I know myself a bit more. And the idea of just continually just getting to know myself more and more and more is really exciting. I really like that idea and that feeling that I'm just starting something. Because 10-year-old me would have gone, mate, 41, that's it. You're done. Whatever you're doing now, that's it.
That's it.
Crack on.
Life's pretty much over. Just carry on.
Yeah, you've made the train tracks now. You've just got to ride them in whatever direction it's going to go in, and you just accept that whatever's coming. Yeah. And at some point, hopefully, you'll retire and then whatever. But I feel like I'm just getting started, which I like.
We started this conversation with who is Matt, taking us 360 degrees back to that. What would you add, change, or alter?
I'm a work in progress, and I'm learning who Matt is, and that changes all the time, and that's challenging at times, but also really fun, because I can see parts of the old Matt that didn't really serve me very well, certainly weren't particularly healthy, are now fading to the back, and the happier, more curious, more open-minded Matt 2.0 is kind of coming to the front, which is good.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed that conversation, please share A Class of Their Own podcast with your friends and family. Subscribe, follow and like. It really helps us continue to grow. Keep being you through connection, learning and play. You are a class of your own.